Hello, everyone, and welcome to our review of Babylon. Damien Chazelle's fourth film, 3 hour long epic about Hollywood transitioning from silent films into talkies, starring Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt, Diego Calva, amongst many others. And yeah, this is a probably our Don't Look Up of the year. Very controversial Christmas release, currently rotten, I believe, on both the critics and fan side on Rotten Tomatoes, which is insane to me. But Anthony, how do you feel about this movie?
Yes, well, as first off, I should say I learned recently that it is his fifth. He made a movie called Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, which
Oh,
was his first feature he made before Whiplash, before making the short for Whiplash. So I should correct myself because I've been saying it's his fourth. Um, I want to go see Guy and Madeline now to see if
yeah.
he has made five A+ movies because he has definitely made four in my book. I love this movie. I've seen it twice. And what I was immediately taken aback by is how bold this film is. I found his creative bravado to be so just refreshing because he is taking his privilege as a perceived auteur. Because I don't know if I believe in auteurism, but I definitely think a lot of people do. I think the people that Damien Chazelle is criticizing this movie definitely believe in auteurism.
Hmm.
And he's using that privilege that he has maintained for the beginning of his career, and he's truly utilizing it to answer questions about his function as a director. What is his role? How does he allow people to think within the cinematic? And I truly just was blown away. I found this to be an incredibly hilarious film. I didn't know he was this funny, but this is a really sharp comedy, much like Rian Johnson with Glass Onion, which we're also reviewing. He's able to take a lot of societal weights and inject them through this comedy filter that makes them feel alive, makes them feel joyous, while always looking for darkness and danger within the frame. But of course, I mean, the major culprit that he's trying to attack here is the Hollywood machine. He described it as a love letter to cinema, but a hate letter to Hollywood. I think if that was his goal, he hit it on just perfectly because that's what this movie is. I think the debaucherous depravity of it is to not only show what Hollywood so often does and partakes in, but I really found myself connecting with these characters, and the depravity for them was an escape from being who they truly were, and that they were afraid of themselves. They were afraid of the individual. And so I just thought this was a brilliant film. I described it yesterday on my Twitter that I think it is the Blade Runner of the 21st century. It is the bold studio picture that will unfortunately be a box office bomb, but later people will truly remark of its brilliance. I think it is too bold for the present, but it's leading us towards the future. And I was just completely blown away.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this movie going into it, but I also really, really liked it. I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know if I love it as much as you do. I this is one of those movies where I went through it all. I really enjoyed it, but I walked out like I can understand why lots of people don't like this movie. Like I can understand. I don't understand like how low the scores are, but I can understand parts of the movie that people don't like. I don't think it's in. I'll start with the negatives, I guess. I don't think it's incredibly well written. I think it's a little bloated. I think they don't deal with all of the characters in the best way. I feel like some characters don't get proper arcs or satisfying endings. And I feel like it's almost kind of like it's jumping through like smaller stories throughout the film rather than focusing on one singular one. I honestly feel like lots of people say this about a lot of movies lately, but it might have made a better like 8 episode HBO series or something, focusing on each individual story a little bit more because I feel like there were characters who we didn't learn enough about or get enough from. Um, and it's a little too long. Some of the stuff tonally didn't completely work for me, but everything else besides that, I really liked. I think the chaotic, crazy energy is, I mean, it's perfect. I think everything technically in particular is just very, very well done here. There's a lot of scenes that, I mean, especially like one huge scene that's just incredibly well done technically on a huge scale. The cinematography is some of my favorite of the year. Same with the score. Both are incredibly well done. The sound work is also really good. The performances, Margot Robbie, I would lock her in for actress just because this might be my favorite performance of her. This or I, Tanya. This is
Favorite
like
of hers. Yes,
of
I
hers. Yeah.
debated between that and I, Tanya. Yeah.
those two are that she's just really good in this movie. There's one scene in particular where like she as an actress within the movie is challenged to do something and she just knocks it out of the park, and it's like all done within one shot, and it's just like it's incredible. That's like her Oscar clip. It's incredible.
It's almost incredible. There's a moment with
Yeah.
Margot Robbie um that it's she doesn't say anything. She's just on screen and she walks into a shadow. And that
Hmm.
one moment, I think you just you're so with her and you feel her presence. She just it's otherworldly. It's almost similar to how I felt about Michelle Williams in The Fablemans, that she just carries her own light, which just Margot Robbie's just is just so alive in this film.
Hmm.
I just Tobey Maguire, I also want to say, went to the Bradley Cooper and Licorice Pizza Academy of stealing a movie with one scene, because he just
Yeah.
comes in here like a rocket and just is exactly what the movie needs him to be. Yeah, I thought the ensemble. I will just say though, I think you definitely have to be on the wavelength of the movie. And I understand if people aren't. I do think for me, what you were saying about like some of the characters don't have arcs, I felt that that was intentional to show that Hollywood doesn't really prioritize these people's voices and stories. You could
Yeah.
argue that the movie is an example of the behavior that it's criticizing, and you might have some legitimacy to that argument. I just think that he's doing that to make a point. And the scenes, I think who you're talking about in specific was Hovin Adepo as Sidney
Yeah.
Palmer. There is such a striking scene with him that I honestly didn't need more. I thought that that one moment, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, was so just heartbreaking, and Hovin Adepo just captures it beautifully. That I think that really encapsulates it so succinctly that I didn't mind some of the other characters, the POC characters and the non-heteronormative characters not getting that as much screen time, because Hollywood never has allowed them. Even Diego Calva is essentially a blank slate who only gets
Yeah.
worth if he's working towards the industry, which is exactly what happens. We've talked about. I mean, I saw Whitney Houston, "I Want to Dance with Somebody," which
Mm.
was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Um,
From the writer of
and
Bohemian Rhapsody.
yes, I might like. I think as a film, I think I maybe like it better than Bohemian Rhapsody. Hot take. But in that scene, there's it's in the trailers where they say that Whitney Houston isn't black enough, in her
Yeah.
music, and she has to struggle with, is she letting go of her identity to be part of the industry? And I think that's what those arcs are about, and whether you sacrifice your individuality to become part of this monolith.
Yeah. I feel like I agree, and I understood even watching it that that was probably his point. I feel like he either could have not done that or made it a little more clear what he was trying to say. But
It's a
I do
tricky
un
question.
it is tricky. I think I do understand what he was trying to do. But I mean, this is like easily his biggest film, the hardest thing he's tried to do. And I feel like he really nailed it. You can see in every scene that everything is so incredibly planned out and like articulated, like you mentioned with the shadow scene, everything is just incredibly well done. Yeah, Mark Robbie would be my acting standout. I really like Jaco Calva. He's kind of, I mean, he doesn't get like the juiciest stuff to do like Margot Robbie does, but he's kind of like our eyes into the entire world, and everything going on. I mean, the first like probably like 45 minutes, hours, like just one giant party scene, and that's probably still my favorite part of the whole movie. I just loved how it opened. Um, and yeah, I mean, I Brad Pitt was pretty good. It's kind of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood level performance for me. Um, which isn't my favorite. I kind of like his dramatic work more, but he's good here. Gene Smart has one really good scene, one good
Oh,
like monologue
that
that
scene.
just knocks out of the park. I wish she got more to do, but that's another highlight in the film.
But
Yeah,
to
I
be
think
honest,
everyone
like
was.
that scene is so good that personally, like I would maybe put her in contention, because I think that, and to to counter what you said about the script, there were some moments of the script, it is a comedy, and I think that it is a
Yeah.
comedy first and foremost, and then the third act happens, and it kind of like it takes away the sheens between what it's laughing about, like where the butt of the joke is, and it
Hmm.
kind of shows you where the comedy is coming from. It's because Howie Mandel said that comedy usually comes from a dark place, and it's comedians
Yeah.
working out their inner demons. And I think the third act is the inner demons that the comedy was working off of in the first two acts. But Gene Smart delivers this it's there's this line where Damien writes that, you know, movie stars and film, like, you're dancing with ghosts and angels and for eternity, and some kid who will be born in like 30 years is going to discover you and find you as a friend. Like, that one scene I think captured what movies are and why we love movies for eternity in ways that I think few movies actually, I mean, even more than La La Land, I think that scene gets what movies truly are about. And I think the honesty to that he's not, you know, because I know a lot of people treated La La Land as this kind of idyllic, like, oh, it's, you know, it's
Love
LA,
letter.
it's insular. I don't think it is. But I do think that this movie, wholeheartedly, he is not trying to put any fabrication. You know, it's almost as if this is what happens to Sammy Fableman when he acts, when the movie ends. Like, it's the dreams of what you want, and then the realization of how they actually work, because it's an industry, it's not a dream. So I found, again, it was constantly surprising too. I enjoyed that at any
Yeah, it
moment
was.
this could completely fall apart, and that risk averse, that danger, I just really admired.
Yeah, it's almost like the yin to La La Land's yang in terms of Hollywood and that whole sphere. I feel like La La Land's a little more idyllic, even though the ending isn't the happiest. I feel like it's a little more rose-colored glasses, and this one's
Mhm.
a little more realistic of the time. And you can even hear in the score some similar notes between La La Land's score and this score. Very good score. And I know the ending is controversial, won't spoil it, but I really enjoyed the ending. I'll just say that. Did you enjoy the ending?
It is a coked up transfusion between 2001: A Space Odyssey and
Mm.
a YouTube Rewind. And if that doesn't
Yeah,
sell you on wanting to at least see it, I don't know what will.
yeah, yeah. One of my favorite endings of the year, to be honest. It's really, really good.
He
Um,
knows he knows what he's
yeah,
doing. He knows how to end a movie.
he does. Yeah, he's killed it with all of his endings. But yeah, Oscar chance wise, I'm not sure, to be honest. I know uh, for controversial movies that are like not greatly reviewed by both critics and audiences, I was hoping audiences would like it more. Just like audiences kind of like Don't Look Up more, even though it was rotten. Um,
Well, they
I
watched Don't Look Up more because it was at home.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pull up the audience.
definitely not as many people have seen this movie for sure, but I still have it in picture. It's like my number 9 or 10. It's like teetering right on the edge. I think there are some technical categories that you can't deny. Like I think it'll definitely get into production design, probably get into costume design, I would think. Um, might be it tech wise. I can't think of anything else. I don't think it's going to get editing or screenplay. I think it's a little too controversial to break into those categories. Acting wise, I think Margot Robbie, even if the movie misses picture, is going to get in there just because it's kind of an undeniable performance.
Well, it's what's interesting is that Margot Robbie has been nominated for two Academy Awards.
Too.
Um, and I forgot whether she was nominated for
Bombshell or Once Upon a Time.
no, yeah, Once Upon a Time, but she's been nominated twice, and both those movies have not been Best Picture nominees. So I think regardless of whether Babylon is a Best Picture contender, she seems to be that type of pick.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be talking about SAG on Weekly Oscar Talk this week, so check that video out. But she actually was even nominated for Mary Queen of Scots at SAG. So she seems to be a
Oh
very
wow.
popular actress who a lot of people really respect. So I would still be confident. And I think whether you like the movie, you don't like the movie, I mean, she is just glowing here. She is such a just electric in this performance. Yeah, it's my number 10 currently in Best Picture because I see a world where it misses, but I also see a
Yeah.
world where there are people who like us and truly do love it. I do think
It's
it's a
made
really
for people in the Academy too. I mean, it's a Hollywood movie. It's kind
potentially.
of criticizing Hollywood, but also
Yeah, but I also do, it's it's interesting. I worry about the box office and the
yeah,
it holding the presence of a failure, how that affects it.
it's gonna be one of the biggest box office failures of the year, along
Yeah.
with a lot of other movies. But yeah, this
So
is this is a big loss.
yeah, so we'll see. But I'm glad. Listen, I think Paramount knew what they were doing. I don't know how you look at the script and think, oh, this is gonna set the box office on fire.
No,
I
I
think
think they
they
were hoping
knew.
for a little more than what it was gonna make.
Yeah.
But
The question is
yeah.
whether they now pivot primarily to Top Gun Maverick and instead of trying to handle them both. But
Mhm.
I still think costume, production design, score, I think it could still get in. Makeup, it could potentially.
Maybe, yeah.
Um, and that's like a 5 or 6. That or All Quiet on the Western Front, I think, are fighting for that last spot. and then
Yeah,
Margot. And so I currently have it at 10 just because I'm really having difficulty filling that 10th spot at this point. Um,
it's
you
difficult.
know,
Yeah,
it's really difficult. The Woman King seems to be having
I've
a
put
second
that in there
wave.
now.
But I do worry about just how many people do put it in when all is said and done. Black Panther showed up on a lot of shortlists, but we've already talked. I think it's going to be very hard for that movie to get
Yeah.
in there. Triangle of Sadness, Decision to Leave. These are smaller movies that I don't think have the same wealth of support. Babylon will have a lot of craft support, and if it gets Margot Robbie, you have at least some of the actors. So I still think it had. I think I feel confident enough to put it in my 10, but I
Mhm.
definitely see a world where it misses.
And I think last time you had Pitt in supporting actor. Is he still there? I think it's possible. There's an open spot for that last one. I still
It's
have Brian Tyree Henry, but
it's possible. I think it is one of his better performances, but I do think that the having seen I've been I haven't like watched a non 2022 movie in like a month. It's with catching up, rewatching,
yeah,
I do the great work of watching all these movies, and then my family's like, all right, what's good? And let's watch that. So they don't have to sit through, the bad
yeah.
ones. Um like another movie that just came out, but they unfortunately had to see that because my mom was interested in the work of Darren Aronofsky. More on that in another video.
Oh yeah,
Um,
poor mother.
but yeah, I tried to get her to do Babylon or Avatar. She did not go for it. She wanted The
Mm,
Whale, which to be fair was an hour and 15 minutes shorter than those other movies. So,
yeah,
you
true.
know. But we were watching Banshees again, and I think Barry Keoghan is just
He's
he's as
honestly probably
good
my favorite in that movie.
he's as good as the rise of Leonardo DiCaprio in films like What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I think he could get in, and it's going to be Fablemans, Banshees, Banshees, and then the winner is The Soul, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So
Yeah,
we shall see. But I'm rooting for it because I do love Babylon, and I do think it's the type of movie that if we don't nominate, it's going to be one of those like we go back and we're like, what were they thinking?
in a few years, people are going to look back on this movie and be like, What was going on here? Why is it like such terrible reviews? Like no one went to see it. Yeah,
Because I do think
misunderstood.
Paramount is going to get this to digital as soon as possible now. And I think
Yeah,
when you watch it at home and you have time to stop, when people know what it is, I don't know how you market this movie, to be honest, because
yeah.
it
The
is this
marketing
reminds me
wasn't
a lot
very
of
good.
No Country for Old Men, which I think a lot of people dismissed when it came out, the Coen brothers film, because they were like, what is this? Because it was very comedic, and I think it eventually found its audience, and now people regard it very positively at the top of the Coen brothers echelon of films. So I see that type of track record and future for Babylon.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah. And then SAG Ensemble, maybe. I don't have it in there right now, but that would be a
Maybe.
good sign if it did get in.
Oh yeah, that would be huge if it was able to. I mean, I would nominate it for best ensemble. I think it's a true ensemble. They're all leaning on each other. Even Margot Robbie is
Yeah,
not the star. It's everybody's a star. So yeah.
agreed. Yeah. So that's our thoughts on Babylon. What rating would you give it?
Oh,
Is it a 5 star?
it's definitely a 5 star. Are we doing 5 stars? Are we doing out of 10? What, how
Let's
do
do
we
out of
rate?
10. More range there.
Oh, all right.
Because I would give it a 9.5 personally.
I
I'm
think
not
I would
gonna
give it a
say a 10.
9.7. So that
Okay.
makes our average rating is a 9.6.
Get some good math there. Yeah. Yeah.
That I
So
can do. That math I
yeah,
can do.
it's easy math. Yeah. Yeah, those are our thoughts on Babylon. If you've seen the movie, sadly, not enough people have seen it, but if you have seen it, comment your thoughts down below. Like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more award season reviews, coverage, all that fun stuff as we enter the new year.